Hello there, friend. You made it, 70 years old. And guess what? The story isn't over. In fact, it might just be getting good. That's exactly what Eleanor told herself the morning of her 70th birthday. She stood at the window with her favorite mug, lavender tea in hand, and watched the sunrise gently stretch across her quiet neighborhood. Something in her chest felt light. Not heavy with memories or regrets, but open, as if life had tapped her on the shoulder and whispered, "Let's begin again." She wasn't trying to chase her youth. No, Eleanor had no interest in pretending to be 30. She liked her silver hair, her slower mornings, her collection of worn-in cardigans. But what she did want, what she craved, was joy. Real joy. The kind that makes you smile for no reason, or laugh at a joke you told yourself. And she knew this much: happiness at 70 doesn't come from trying to be who you were. It comes from embracing who you are now. In this series, we'll follow Eleanor, and a few of her lively friends, as they explore what it truly means to be happy in your 70s. No gimmicks. No fancy formulas. Just real tips, real stories, and a reminder that it's never too late to feel truly alive. The very next day, Eleanor did something different. It wasn't dramatic. She didn't go skydiving or sign up for salsa lessons, though, truth be told, both had crossed her mind at some point. No, all she did was get up 15 minutes earlier. 15 quiet minutes before the phone buzzed, before the coffee percolated, before the world began to hum. She sat in her favorite chair by the window, a knitted throw over her lap, and just breathed. She didn't scroll. She didn't plan. She simply watched the world wake up, one golden ray at a time. It became her ritual. And soon, those peaceful moments began to ripple through her day. She smiled more. She had more patience when the toaster acted up. Her thoughts felt clearer. Lighter. Eleanor had stumbled upon her first happiness tip. Start your day with intention, not noise. At 70, she realized, happiness isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. And sometimes, what matters most, is a little silence and a soft sunrise. On Tuesday morning, Eleanor put on her comfiest walking shoes and headed to the park. The air was crisp, just the way she liked it. Leaves rustled softly under her feet, and a couple of squirrels were already causing mischief near the oak trees. She sat on her usual bench, not because it was the fanciest, but because it faced the pond. Ducks floated by like they had no deadlines, no to-do lists. Eleanor loved that. As she sipped her tea, a gentleman shuffled over and asked, "Mind if I sit?" "Not at all," she said with a smile. His name was Harold. A retired mailman with a dry sense of humor and a surprising knowledge of birds. They started talking, and talking. What began as a quick "good morning" turned into a 40-minute conversation about childhood memories, favorite books, and the magic of cinnamon toast. When Eleanor finally stood to leave, she felt something stir inside her, something warm and needed. That day, she discovered her second happiness tip. Real connection, even a short one, can lift the soul. It didn't matter that they were strangers an hour ago. What mattered was that, for a little while, they were seen. Eleanor had always loved to paint. Not professionally, not competitively. Just her and her brushes, a few tubes of paint, and a quiet corner of the room. In her younger years, she'd spend hours lost in color, dabbing, mixing, blending. She had a soft spot for landscapes, misty mountains, quiet rivers, warm meadows bursting with wildflowers. Her little paintings never hung in galleries. But they hung on her walls, and in the hearts of those she gifted them to. Then life got busy. Children came. Bills came. Time disappeared. The easel was packed away, shoved behind winter coats and forgotten in the attic. Years passed. And eventually, Eleanor told herself she just didn't have it anymore. But after meeting Harold in the park, something shifted. That conversation reminded her that she was still here. Still capable of curiosity, laughter, and yes, creativity. So, that Thursday afternoon, Eleanor pulled down the old box. She sneezed her way through the dust, smiling at the worn labels: cerulean blue, burnt sienna, sap green. Like reuniting with old friends. She sat up by the kitchen window, where the light poured in just right. She didn't worry about technique. She didn't even start with a plan. She just dipped her brush into the paint, pressed it gently to the canvas, and let it lead. At first, it was awkward. Her strokes felt unsure, like legs finding balance after a long rest. But she kept going. She let go of expectations. The colors began to speak again, softly at first, then with more confidence. A little blue sky here. A touch of golden wheat there. By the end of the afternoon, the canvas held a quiet field, dappled with wildflowers beneath a pink-tinged sky. Was it perfect? No. But was it hers? Absolutely. When she stepped back, something unexpected happened. She laughed. Not the kind of laugh you force when someone tells a joke you don't quite get. No, this was real. A laugh that bubbled up from her chest, bright and full, like sunshine cracking through a cloudy sky. That's when she realized her third happiness tip. Reclaim what you once loved. Even if you're rusty. Even if it's just for you. She didn't paint to impress. She painted because it felt good. Because it brought her back to herself. Later that week, she showed the painting to her daughter over a video call. Her daughter gasped. "Mom, this is gorgeous. I didn't even know you still painted." Eleanor just smiled. Neither did I. That evening, as the light faded and the air cooled, she made a little promise to herself: once a week, she'd paint. No rules, no pressure. Just her and the canvas, talking in color. And it wasn't just the painting. It was the act of returning. Of opening the dusty door to an old part of herself and finding that, surprisingly, it still worked. Maybe a little creaky, maybe slower, but still alive. Still meaningful. Something else shifted after that day. Her days felt fuller. Not because she added more to her schedule, but because she had purpose. A reason to get up. A project to look forward to. A secret joy humming in the background of her life. Harold noticed, too. When they met again at the park bench, he tilted his head and said, "You look like you're up to something." Eleanor chuckled. "Maybe I am." She brought him a small painting the following week. Just a sketch of the park, the pond, the ducks, the trees in soft watercolor. Nothing fancy. But Harold looked at it like she'd handed him a treasure. "Would you believe me if I said this is the kindest thing anyone's done for me all year?" he asked. And in that moment, Eleanor learned something else. Our joys have ripple effects. What fills us up, often spills over and blesses others. By revisiting something she loved, she didn't just bring light to her own days, she passed that light along. Like a spark in the dark, shared from one soul to another. That week, Eleanor cleaned off her attic shelf and placed her painting supplies where they belonged, front and center. No more hiding them away. No more convincing herself she was too old, too tired, too past her prime. She wasn't finished, not even close. And that's the quiet secret of happiness at 70. Sometimes, the way forward, is by going back. Back to the things that made your heart sing. Back to the joy you once tucked away for someday. Eleanor was done waiting for someday. From that point on, every brushstroke became a quiet celebration, not just of beauty, but of being. Of presence. Of returning. Because happiness, she realized, isn't about being busy. It's about being in tune. Eleanor wasn't what you'd call a party person. She liked small things, quiet dinners, soft music, gentle company. But after weeks of morning tea, painting sessions, and park conversations with Harold, she felt something stirring. Loneliness, she realized, doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it just slips in, quietly. It hides in empty chairs, unused mugs, or long silences during dinner. And Eleanor had grown tired of it. One morning, as the sun poured through her kitchen blinds, she had a wild idea. She put down her tea and said out loud, "Why not host a little gathering? It wouldn't be fancy. Just a few neighbors. Some cookies. A pitcher of lemonade. Maybe Harold, if he could bring that sharp wit of his and a few bird facts." The idea made her nervous, and oddly excited. She got to work. First, she called Carol from 2 doors down, the one who always waved but never stayed to chat. Then Mr. and Mrs. Patel across the street, kind folks, a little shy. She even left a note in old Mrs. Murphy's mailbox, inviting her to a backyard visit with cookies and kindness. By Friday, she had 8 confirmed guests. 8. That was more than Eleanor had expected. She borrowed a few folding chairs from her daughter and picked up a cheerful tablecloth from the discount store, the kind with lemons and daisies. It made her smile. The day arrived, and Eleanor stepped outside with a tray of lemon bars and a pot of strong coffee. Her garden was small but proud. A few blooming hydrangeas stood in one corner. The windchime by the fence sang softly in the breeze. One by one, the guests arrived. Carol came first, holding a jar of strawberry jam she'd made herself. "Didn't want to show up empty-handed," she said, blushing. The Patels brought warm samosas that filled the air with spice. Mrs. Murphy shuffled in slowly, holding a tin of butter cookies and wearing her Sunday cardigan. And Harold? He showed up in a tan vest and a crooked smile, carrying a tiny potted plant. "It's a marigold," he said. "Like you, cheerful and hard to ignore." They sat in a loose circle under the shade of Eleanor's maple tree, laughing at stories, trading recipes, sharing little slices of life. Some of them had lived on the same street for years but had never spoken more than a polite hello. Now they were chuckling together like old friends. At one point, Eleanor stood back and watched. She didn't say anything. She just looked at the faces around her table, smiling, relaxed, present. And she felt something bloom in her chest. Not pride. Not relief. Just contentment. She had created this space. She had gathered joy. That day, she uncovered another tip for lasting happiness. Don't wait to be invited. Be the one who gathers others. It doesn't take much. A table. A warm drink. A bit of kindness. But oh, how far those things go, especially at 70, when the world often forgets to knock on your door. After everyone had gone home, Eleanor sat under the tree alone. The chairs were empty again, but this time, the silence felt different. Not hollow. Just peaceful. Like her backyard had stories now. Like it had purpose. Later, her daughter called to check in. "How'd the visit go, Mom?" Eleanor smiled as she rinsed the coffee mugs. "Better than I imagined. I think I'm going to do it again." The following week, she received a card in her mailbox from Mrs. Murphy. It read, "Thank you for including me. It was the first time in months I didn't feel invisible." Eleanor read it twice. And that's when she truly understood. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do, for yourself and others, is to simply see them. Age has a funny way of making people feel like they're fading, like they're stepping off the stage. But Eleanor was done fading. She wanted to be the light that reminded others, "You're still here. You still matter." The gathering became a regular thing. Once a month, she hosted Backyard Fridays. Each one had a theme: tea and biscuits, bring your own book, garden swap. More people came each time. A retired teacher, a widower who loved crossword puzzles, a woman who crocheted for charity. The group grew, not just in numbers, but in warmth. They were no longer neighbors by address. They were friends by choice. One Friday, Harold raised his mug and said, "Eleanor, this backyard has more joy than a bingo hall on payout night." She laughed so hard, she nearly spilled her tea. And so, at 70, Eleanor had done something she never expected. She had built community. Not with grand gestures. Not with social media. But with a table, a smile, and a heart wide open. Because the truth is, happiness doesn't just show up. Sometimes, you have to create the space for it. You have to reach out, open your gate, and let life in, even if it's just a few neighbors with cookies and folding chairs. And what she learned, most of all, was this. Joy is contagious. And the best kind, is shared. One rainy afternoon, Eleanor found a cream-colored envelope in her mailbox. No return address. Inside was a handwritten letter on lined paper, neatly folded. "Dear Eleanor," it began. "You won't remember me, but I remember you. In high school, you once stood up for me when others laughed. That small moment stayed with me for over 50 years. I just wanted to say thank you." It was signed, gratefully, Marjorie. Eleanor blinked twice. Marjorie? From biology class? She hadn't thought of her in decades. She held the letter to her chest. That single act, so long ago, had meant something. It reminded her of a beautiful truth. Small kindnesses echo through time. That weekend, Eleanor wrote back. One letter led to another. And soon, they were exchanging recipes, memories, and laughter through the mail. A friendship was reborn, proof that the past isn't gone. Sometimes, it's just waiting to return in a lovely envelope. Eleanor's feet hadn't danced in years. Not really. But one sunny afternoon, a neighbor's grandchild set up a speaker and started playing swing music in the front yard. The rhythm was impossible to ignore. Her fingers tapped. Her shoulders swayed. Harold noticed and offered a hand with a grin. "Shall we embarrass ourselves?" She laughed. "Oh, absolutely." They twirled, offbeat and full of joy. Her bones creaked, her knees complained, but her spirit soared. That moment led to her 7th happiness tip. Move your body, not to stay young, but to stay joyful. Whether it's dancing in the driveway, stretching in the morning sun, or walking through your favorite grocery aisle like it's a runway, movement is life. At the monthly backyard gathering, someone brought up pottery classes at the local community center. "I'd probably just break the clay," Eleanor joked. But Harold nudged her. "So what if you do?" She thought about it. What if happiness after 70 wasn't about being great at things, but just doing them? She signed up the next day. The first bowl she made looked more like a pancake. The second? Lopsided. But she loved it. Her hands were messy. Her mind was alive. The class was full of laughter, stories, and that familiar feeling of discovery. And so, Eleanor learned her 8th happiness tip. Say yes to new things. You're not too old to begin, just too wise to keep waiting. Not every moment was perfect. One morning, Eleanor received a call asking her to volunteer for an event she had no interest in. In the past, she would have agreed, just to avoid guilt. But this time, she paused. She'd made plans for herself that day, a walk, some painting, and tea with Harold. So she said, "Thank you, but I'll have to pass." The sky didn't fall. No one was angry. And Eleanor felt free. That's when she embraced her 9th tip. Happiness isn't just about what you say yes to, but what you give yourself permission to say no to. Protecting your time, your peace, your passions, it matters. As the months passed, Eleanor didn't win any awards. She didn't go viral. She didn't do anything the world might call extraordinary. But every day, she smiled a little more. Laughed a little louder. Sat in her garden, painted under the sun, hugged friends, and listened to music that made her sway. She had built a life, not flashy, not famous, but full. One morning, she watched the sun rise with Harold beside her. The light bathed their faces in gold. He leaned in and said, "You know, I think 70 suits you." Eleanor just smiled. "I think it does too." And there it was, the final and most important tip of all. Happiness at 70 doesn't come from chasing more, but from cherishing what already is.